Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to Shen Plays. Welcome back to Factorio Beginner Series, Beginner Guide, with my friend Aavak. How's it going, Aavak?
It's going quite well. Thank you very much for asking. And yourself?
Well, pretty good. I noticed we had a radar get destroyed over here in the east. I'm very sad, but at least there's some dead biter corpses next to it. Take that, biters.
Indeed. If we actually have a look at the map, we've actually uncovered quite a lot off camera because it took us a while to get a couple of things done. But we have found a couple of the biter bases.
Mm-hmm.
The main culprits for our attacks are the obvious ones because they're under the pollution. And one of them is drinking the pollution at an alarming rate, honestly.
Yep.
Happens to be the
Oh,
side
look at
where
that.
the
We just
radar was
discovered
destroyed.
another one in the north. Look at
Yeah.
that.
Now,
So we were getting some attacks, and they actually made it through our defenses. So we've expanded the northern defenses, including 4 more turrets, and also brought walls to the water. And if you bring a wall to the water, the biters can never get by. Water is essentially a wall that can never be destroyed. The biters can't cross it. You can't cross it. It's just a fantastic thing to prevent. It's like a choke point. It really does
it's a
provide
natural.
a natural choke point, right? So between episodes there, we doubled our iron smelting area because we were running very low on iron on our main bus of resources here. We've also introduced some little boxes to siphon off some iron and copper so that we can use them without having to run along and press F on the belts like this.
Now, it's worth discussing this one because you'll notice that these boxes have less inventory room, and this is something
Hmm.
that you can configure. If you press this little X here, you can then draw out how many of the inventory's natural slots are not accessible. And once you do that, the inserters or any automated process that tries to put anything in there won't fill up those spots. But also worth noting is if it already had something in it, and then you put, for example, if I were to expand this out to say this, if there was an inserter in here trying to take something out, it would never access these two. It would completely ignore them. So you can actually mess things up a little bit. So it's just worth being aware of that.
Yep. And the reason we've limited this is because we really don't need to have, a million iron or copper on hand ready to use
No.
all the time, but we do want to have some ready to go. So we've limited that to 800 iron and 400 copper, so just so we have some ready to go at any point in time. In the meanwhile, Aavak has also expanded our steam area here to instead of 3, we now have, how many is that, Aavak? Is that 9?
Nice.
That is 9, which means we're producing a lot more electricity than before. And if we left click on a telephone pole, you can see the second bar is now no longer full. So we're using about half of the electricity that we could produce. And remember, if you're trying to figure out if you need more or if you have enough, if the top bar is not full, that means you need more. If the middle bar is not full, that means you're good to go.
Yeah. Now, one thing to note here is I am vastly overheating this water. Now, the thing with this is only the number of boilers that are required will actually fire. The boilers that don't need to heat the water anymore because it's already 100 degrees won't try to fire. So we're not wasting fuel, we're possibly wasting a little bit of space. We could likely expand this a little bit further. And the way I've done this is rather than just going down in a line because that would be very inconvenient for us, I just put a little bend in the pipe and then carried on back up here. We could expand it a little bit more, probably not going to at least anytime soon. We expanded our radar coverage a little bit, and you can see on the map we have actually uncovered quite a lot there.
Yeah.
We've expanded out the defenses in the places where we already had defenses. Here, not so much,
Oh,
but over on the sides.
we also
Ah,
got the,
yes,
the wall factory put in. Aavak put this
yeah,
in. Can you tell us how it works? Because we talked about how to make
certainly,
bricks
yeah.
last time.
Currently, it's very simple. It takes bricks. It needs, I think, 5 bricks per stone wall. So once it's got enough, it just makes one stone wall and then just drops it in here. Stone walls, you're going to be producing them slowly, unfortunately. So they're something that you just want to kind of set up and then just let run. Thankfully, you don't use a lot of walls, generally speaking. Now, I did want to cover one thing that I did with the defenses, and that is I've daisy chained them. As I mentioned previously, turrets aren't greedy. They'll only try to store about 10 magazines out of the 100 that they can store. So you can actually have a turret take from another turret because it's only going to take 10. And then that one will store up another 10 and then it'll be fine. And once this one runs out, it'll just pluck one from the turret in front of it, so on and so forth. But you do need to make sure that you do have a reasonable storage of ammo there because you can run out fairly quickly like this. And eventually, only the turrets on the very outer edges will have any ammo if the ammo supply runs low.
Now, one thing that we need to mention that I don't know why we haven't yet, I just guess we forgot, is we've moved our area of science production to the south. It used to be up here where the radar is, and we moved it south. Why? Because this area is close to the water. This is probably where we're going to put our expanded power production in case we need it. There's lots of room here for power. And in the south, there's tons of room, but no water. So the south is where we decided to move the science. It's the exact same as it was above. I think I'm using a little less materials here. I'm using long inserters instead of underground belts, whatever. It works just fine. And what we've done now is we've put all of the red beakers onto one side of the belt. This is called side loading. We haven't covered this yet because we didn't really need to. But if you ever have a situation where you want to have two different kinds of resources on one belt, you do side loading like this. Alternatively, you could do inserters that cross, and the crossing inserters would only put it on one side of the belt. That works too. But this doesn't require inserters, which is a little nicer. And what we're going to have on the other side of the belt is called green science. And that is down in intermediate products in your crafting window. And green science requires a lot of materials. Aavak, you want to tell them how it's done?
Yeah, certainly. Now, when you first look at it, you might think, well, it doesn't require a lot. It requires two. But the problem is these are two refined materials. Well, not just refined, they're actually two products. So we need an inserter and we need transport belts. Thankfully, both fairly simple things to make in and of themselves. Transport belt we've already set up. It's just iron. That's it, just 3 iron. You need 1 gear, 1 iron plate. The inserter, a little bit more complicated, but still not too bad. 4 irons. You need 1 iron gear, 1 iron plate, and 1 electrical circuit. So you need 1.5 copper because I believe electrical circuits are made 2 per. I could be wrong about that. Sorry, 2 for 3 copper, I think, in total. So that's why it's an odd. 3 copper cable. There we go. That's why there's a decimal place there. But despite that, because it's requiring 2 processes that actually have a lot of different steps to make them, it needs a lot more room. It's really easy to underestimate how much room you're going to need to set up green science, because first you need to make the gears. You're going to be using gears. You're going to be using copper cable, so you're going to need a machine making that. Then you're going to need to make the transport belt. The inserters are going to require electric circuits. So there's a lot of different steps to this, and each step uses things in different ratios. Now, this is one thing that Shen has shown over here. He can run 4 science factories off 1 factory producing gears just because the gears are not used that quickly. So we're probably going to have to juggle the ratios a little around with this. We're more than likely not going to dwell too long again, perfectly efficient, just because we're just trying to illustrate how to set it up. But before we do that, and perhaps while Shen is setting up the initial part, I'm going to expand our coal production because I'm noticing we're not backing up the line that runs to our power, and that's a little bit frightening. It means that we're using the coal a little bit faster than we're sending it over there. And that's largely because we've expanded our smelting. So by doing this, we're just going to back that up because we have got a lot of things now running off coal.
Okay, looks good. One thing we could do is we could play a little bit with splitters so that only a smaller portion of the coal goes over to our iron smelting and more of the coal goes to our power plant. Another thing you can do, which I don't think we're going to do here today, another thing you can do is make your fuel into a loop so that the loop of fuel will go around your factory and you'll always have fuel coming by your power plant, so you'll never run out of fuel there. But that can get messy, and a lot of people don't like a giant loop around your factory. So we'll probably just leave it the way it is for now. Anyway, to get started with green science, I am going to get started making electric circuits. They require iron plates and copper cables in a ratio of 3 to 2. Now, this is a very easy ratio to remember. You're going to be making green circuits all the damn time. So you'll get used to the 3 to 2 ratio for green circuits, no problem. Aavak, meanwhile, what would you like to do? You want to do the transport belts?
Yeah, I'll work on the transport belts.
Okay.
I don't think there's any crossover between the transport belts and the... Oh, no, there is gear crossover there. But you're going to be using up all of your gears for the green circuits, aren't you? It's basically a perfect ratio. Is that right?
Gears for green circuits. Let's
Sorry,
see.
for the inserters, I mean. Or are you just going to be working on the green circuits?
I was just going to do the green circuits.
Okay, no, that's fine.
If
Right,
that's
okay.
okay.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Oh
I'm
goodness.
effectively just going to be mirroring your setup at the top for the belt. We could siphon off some of the belts up there, but there's really no point in doing that, in my opinion, because we want those belts for building, and the science is going to use a lot of these belts. So we may as well just set that up now. Two transport belts are produced with one iron plate, one gear, and requires 1 second. If we look at the gears, requires two iron plates and requires zero point 0.5. So we will produce two gears every 1 second, and we will use one gear every. Actually, in perfect synergy, actually. We'll be able to produce four transport belts for the same speed that the gear factory will be doing.
Okay.
Now, where are you going to be building this? Are you going to
I'm
build
going
it
to build over
there?
here by the coal.
Okay.
So I'll give you the southern half.
All right, fair enough. Now, you normally wouldn't necessarily build over um, oil, but we've got plenty of places where we can get oil, so we're not too worried about that at the
Oh yeah.
moment.
If you're looking at the map with the M button, the very bright pink dots are your oil. And one other thing that we haven't really talked about yet is you will be able to get resources from far, far away. So the fact that you're
Yes.
building over some of it at the start is not really the end of the world.
No, not at all. Now, what I just did there is I held down control and I right clicked the resource in this chest. What that did is when you hold down control, it tries to take or manipulate all the resources in the chest. And by right clicking instead of left clicking, I said take half. So I literally took half of everything in the chest. It is possible to do this without ever going into the chest. And that is simply you use the control. So, for example, if I want half of the copper in here, which is 400, hold down control, right click on the chest itself, and I've taken 200 copper plate. Don't actually want it, so I'll put it back, but there we go.
Okay, so in my case, I need, for electric circuits, I need copper and iron plates. And that's it. Let's take a look here and see what we get.
Right, so you're actually going to be building downwards, are you, for the electric circuits?
I could go up, I guess.
No, that's fine. If you build down over there, then I'll just move over to the west a little further, and then I'll
Okay.
start building things down here
Yeah, that's fine.
instead.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
There we go. Right. So first and foremost, we'll be producing two transport belts every minute. And how long does it take to do that? It takes 6 seconds and requires one transport belt. Actually, looking at this, I was reading the wrong thing. I was looking at the total raw, which was it took 1 second to produce a transport belt. It doesn't. The factory is going to produce it in 0.5 seconds. And so it'll need one gear every 0.5 seconds, which I believe I'll be producing, no, one every 0.5. So that should just work by itself, honestly. I wonder why you've got two up the top then.
What happened?
You've got two gears being fed into your factories at the top.
Two gears.
One factory providing for two belt factories.
Yeah, what's the
Is
problem?
that efficient?
I have no idea. I just did it because it was the space that I had. I didn't want to take up
fair
too
enough.
much space.
See, this is what happens when you start worrying about the actual build speeds and the ratio. It seems that one gear, which a factory is going to take 0.5 seconds to produce from two iron, will be consumed at the same speed to produce two transport belts, one gear and one iron plate. So I'll just have it one for one there. Which means we are going to need a second gear production further down. Set that up. Now we can just skip over the copper there by having a long handled inserter and straight down. So we want gears here, belts there.
No, it's been a while since I've done one of these. It's coming back, Aavak. It's coming back.
Lies. There we go.
All right, so there's a little electronics.
This
Cool.
is also going to need iron itself. So actually, thinking about it, I can just run it sideways. It would be a little bit better.
And then these are going to go onto another belt. So we need another belt down here, like so. And we'll use long-handed inserters to put them there.
And
all right, so now that we have electronics, what's the next step? We need, the inserters. So you're making the belts, right?
mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll make some gear wheels. I'll see if I can make the inserters down here.
Right, I was just checking then because it wasn't pulling more gears across, but it seems that's because this is filled up. Like I said, the inventories will not hold a full stack of things. They'll just hold a little bit. So the belts are being produced over here. How's everything going down there?
I think we're pretty good. Just need to make gears. And we're going to put, so this is something that we haven't talked about yet. Aha! Factories have a limit of their input items. These early factories can only take 2 items as an input, assembly machine 1s. What we need now are assembly machine 2s, which can take, is it 4 items, I think?
3, I think.
It's 3. Okay, so they can take more than assembly machine 1s. And if we mouse over inserters, they take 3 items. So they have to take iron gears, iron gear wheels, and electric circuits. So we're going to need some new factories to produce these.
That's right.
We can't make them in these gray factories. We need blue factories.
And we can't even research blue factories yet because blue factories require automation 2, which is down here, and that has a prerequisite of electronics. So that is the first thing we need to research. So let's get that going.
Yep. So if we go to electronics, you can see that then allows automation 2, and automation 2 allows assembly machine 2. Oh, there you go. Crafts items that require up to 4 ingredients.
Oh, it is 4. Oh,
it is 4.
Now, the electronics also unlocks advanced electronics, circuit networks. Now, that's much more of a complicated thing that we'll probably cover at the very end of this series.
Mm-hmm.
But also allows electric energy distribution, so you can have better electric pulse, lab efficiency, so labs work a little bit faster, and rocketry. At that point, you can start making rockets, like rocket launchers. Now, one thing we haven't discussed and how we've managed to miss this, the point of the game, or at least at the moment,
there's a point
to build. I know, it's to build the rocket silo. It's the end technology. You win, in quotes, the game by building this and launching a rocket. You don't really need to. You can have all sorts of other personal goals, but that is technically the end goal of the game. So rocketry is on the step towards that.
Okay, so now this is something that may change as the game comes to release date. We're still a month away from release date, and they have talked about changing the end game scenario. But that's kind of why this series is geared towards people who are new to the game, who need to understand the basics and how to get their factory going. Because the end game is probably up for debate right now. We'll see what happens in a month's time.
So, yeah.
They haven't really revealed too much about it yet. Okay, so while electronics is finishing, or when it finishes, we're going to queue up automation 2. Electronics, you can see, takes 15 seconds per cycle, and there's 30 cycles. Automation 2 is just a little bit longer than that. It's not really that long overall. So we're going to go ahead and queue up automation 2.
It seems that I may need to improve the defenses a little bit up here.
Are we getting hit? Oh, wow, yeah.
Well, we're getting very large beta waves. Well, they're not very large. They do get much bigger than this. But if I perhaps add an extra gun at the top, because they're tending towards the top rather than the bottom.
This could be an opportunity for us to go take out that little hut right there.
We could, yes. We would start finding ourselves attacked by evolved biters at that point, though.
Right. But the point is, if you get attacked and you know where the attack came from, in this case, we know the attack came from this hut because it was the only thing on the west that's covered by pollution. That's right. That means that they're no longer amassing an attack force because it just came. So if we go to kill that little hut, there will be a lot less defenders there because we just killed a bunch of them with our turrets.
That's right.
So we don't have to. I'm just saying that would be an opportunity after an attack is a good time for a counterattack.
Yeah. Once you start attacking the spawning building, it will vastly increase the speed that it's spawning. It will be able to spawn defenders to meet your attack, but it's still not gonna. Early stages won't be able to overwhelm you. But once you start destroying bases, that's when you're going to start seeing the much harder biters. So for the time being, I think it's probably
Yeah.
best to err on the side of caution and just bolster our defenses by adding this wall. I've probably made it so that they'll still try to get in there because there's still an accessible route to the turrets, but they're going to have even longer to walk whilst the
Hmm.
turrets are getting extra time to shoot
And
them. And I'll just top up the bullets as well.
one other thing that we may or may not really want to cover too early, but I'm just going to do it because it's fun, is if you know
Okay.
where the biters are going to go. For instance, we know they're going to come to this rear entrance of of the turrets here. We can do
Mhm.
little sneaky things on the side, like putting belts that push them
Yep,
away. And this is
that's right.
incredibly stupid. It works just fine. Belts do not require electricity at all. And
Yes.
this tactic will prevent the biters from reaching the turrets as fast as they normally would. It is kind of a waste of resources. That's the one thing I'll say about it. It is a bit wasteful. But at the same time, it's kind of funny to watch the biters like, oh, I can't get there. Oh, I can't get there.
Shen is easily amused.
Oh, yes. Very.
Now, you may have noticed that the place got quite bright all of a sudden when darkness came. It's because Shen has dotted a couple of lights around the base.
I love lights.
Yeah, they do make the place. They do really make the place.
Okay,
Right,
automation 2
automation
is
two is
done.
finished.
That means we can build them in our pocket. I'm just going to make 5 of them.
Very well.
Now, they do take a long time. Look at this construction time. We're building wire, then we're building electronics, then we're building gears, then we're building more wire, electronics, more gears. Then we're building the automation assembly machines 1, and then we're building the assembly machines 2. And this
Takes
is
13.5 seconds to make it entirely.
and this is the way. And if I since I right clicked and made it 5, it'll take 5 times that long. But this is the way the game handles your pocket. It checks out your current inventory. In my case, I had 2 assembly machine 1s in my inventory. So it says, you know what? I don't need to make those 2 assembly machine 1s. So instead, it only had to make 3. And then once it's done with those 3, then it'll make the 5 blue automated machines, automated factories for us. But it did consume the 2 gray ones. So I'm going to make 5 more gray ones after the blue one's done. And that should be the last ingredient we need for green science.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
I am going to finish off your little amusing conveyor belt defense system.
Oh, I see you're funneling them in with walls. That's even better. Because
Yeah.
what we can do is we can wall up to this water so they can't get past the wall. They have to go to the wall. And that'll encourage them to come towards this open gap. And the open gap is filled with stuff that pushes them away.
Later on, when you research the much faster conveyor belt, you can actually get to a point where they're just never going to make progress, or the progress will be painfully slow. Literally, in their case, because they'll be being shot.
Yep. Okay, so we have our first blue factory here. It requires these, and we're going to need a red inserter as well. There we go. Done a telephone pole for electricity. And I'm out of belts. Oh, goodness, Aavak, I'm out of belts. I'll build
Right,
some
let
more.
me move. Well, there's loads of belts here. Just
Oh,
siphon some
yeah.
off.
You and your belts.
I will actually move this because that is going to require a certain amount of room.
Okay.
So
So we
there we
now
go.
have. Oh, wait, I didn't make the. This is not the right machine. I need inserters here. Oh,
Yes.
so this is something we haven't covered yet. If you pick the wrong recipe in your factory, for instance, I picked green science. And that's a little preemptive because we don't actually have our inserters yet. So like, oh, I picked the wrong recipe. Click on this little circle icon. It says set current recipe. That'll let you choose a different one. So now I want inserters. There you go.
There
And
you
look
go.
at this. It's picking up electronics, it's picking up gears, and it's picking up plates. And it's going to make some inserters, but it'll only hold 3. That means we need an output for it. So where would you like the output? Maybe right to the north here?
Certainly, actually,
Right
if you
there?
do that, so you
Unless you
just
want to
want
put them
to
on a
pop it
belt.
straight in.
We
Let's
can put them
just
on a
look
belt.
at the ratios because the Science Pack 2 takes 6 seconds to make, takes 1 inserter and 1 transport belt. I'm making 2 transport belts every 0.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So in 6 seconds, can make an awful lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're making inserters, you're making 1 every 0.5 seconds. So ideally, you would want twice as many inserter factories that you've got
Compared to your transport belt factories.
transport belt factories, and
Correct.
then 1. That's for every green science pack factory. for now, we don't need to worry about getting exactly the best output out of it. But it is interesting to note.
Yeah, working out the right ratios for you is going to be something that you can do in your own spare time.
Hmm.
But he is correct. Aavak is correct saying that one transport belt factory and two inserter factories would be the ideal for producing green science as fast as possible. But in our case, we're more worried about just getting the green science going, less worried about making it like the most efficient thing ever.
Yeah. Right. So where do you want to be belting the
I guess if we're going to consider
produce?
leaving room for a second inserter factory, maybe right next to this one so that you can use the gears here, then why don't we put the green science up here?
Yeah, by
And
all
green
means.
science can be done with level 1 factories. There's no reason to use level 2s unless you really want it to be super quick.
Yeah. Go ahead. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to side load. Actually, I'll put it down there. Since this is going to require two resources, I'll just side load the belts onto here and take the production from the inserter factory. Again, we're not worrying about efficiency here. We're just worrying about getting this stuff to where it needs to be so we can have green science. There we go. Now, we could easily fund a few of these factories this way. Ah, you've already sorted that out. Wonderful.
Sorry?
You're already piping it along there.
Trying to, yeah.
We can move the coal further back if you need more room. That is
Yeah,
not going to be a problem.
this is a situation where it's like, we could squeeze it in, but it probably makes more sense to just move something out of the way. Like I'm doing tricky underground junk that probably isn't necessary. It just makes things a little more awkward to look at and deal with later on. So instead, we'll just put four factories right next to each other, and we'll run a belt behind them with the resources that we need. And notice that Aavak has side-loaded the resources so that one comes from the inserter factory and one comes from the belt, and they all go together. And that makes it really easy to put them into the factories at the end here. Oh, I'm out of belts again. Goodness. I can just hold down F. Look at that. Okay, set this up with green science as the recipe.
Now, again, each one of these is going to take 6 seconds to make one green science. And since right now the bottleneck is the inserters in terms of its production, because we're producing 4 belts, we're only producing 4 belts in every. How often is that? Every 1 second. We're only producing 2 inserters every second. So the inserters are what are going to limit us. It's how many green science facilities we can have with 2 inserters. So in 6 seconds, we would have 12 inserters. Is that right?
6 seconds, 12 inserters. Is that right?
Which means that we could have, I believe, was it 12 of these factories? I could be wrong. The math could be terrible there. Don't think it is. Ah, we're limited on the gears. Right. I was thinking that doesn't look like we're making the inserters as fast as we should be able to make them there. But
Is it not enough gears?
yeah, the gears look like they're the
What's the
bottleneck
slow
there.
part of the gears? The slow part of the gears is putting the metal into the factory. So if
Right.
we
Well,
move
we
the
can
telephone pole
fix that.
over, we can put more inserters there. Easy peasy.
Alternatively, you can take one inserter or have a fast inserter.
Do we have fast inserters already? Oh my
Indeed we do.
goodness. Okay,
They are much faster.
what research was fast inserters?
I believe
Logistics
that
2?
was
Was that the same time we got
logistics.
the splitters and underground belts maybe?
Could
I
be.
don't remember. Let's see, electronics. Nope. That is the smart insert. We have unlocked some stuff that we haven't even discussed yet. We've unlocked the smart inserter, which we're not going to talk about just yet.
Yeah, we'll talk
Where
about
is
that
it?
when we're actually
There it is.
getting
Okay,
to
yeah.
that one.
So when I researched logistics a while ago, it gives you underground belts, it gives you splitters, and it also gives you fast inserters. So yeah, fast inserters are really going to be the way that we go forward with our factory here because one of the main bottlenecks is being able to move things back and forth quickly.
Yeah.
And fast inserters are way, way, way faster than standard inserters. And you'll see that. Look how slow the standard inserter moves compared to the fast inserter. So now, are we still bottlenecked on the gears? No. The bottleneck
No.
is now
is now moving the green circuits across. So I'm going to make a final long-handled inserter.
Sounds good to me.
Pop that down there,
And that
and
looks
then we
very
should be
good.
able to get it all in there.
Might need a second fast inserter over here, actually,
Really?
for the
Ah,
gears.
yes, you are quite right. At this point, it's not actually accepting more because it's
The line is
has
full.
nowhere to put it anymore.
But we did witness that it needs another fast inserter, so I'll go ahead and throw one down. Why not? That way, make sure that this is going as fast as possible. The production is very quick. It takes half a second to make a gear wheel. So at this point, yeah, it's working just fine. Cool. And we have green science coming out. Looks like we do. Ah, look at that, Aavak. Green science going into our loop. And again, we're using side loading here to even out the belts. So 2 of the green beakers are being put onto the left side of the belt, and 2 of the green are going onto the right side of the belt. This is just a little, compact way of doing that. There are many ways to balance a belt, so to speak. And this is just one of the easiest ways to do it. And then once the green science is produced, it's being brought over here and side loaded onto our main science loop, along with the red science. And look at that. It's all neatly sorted. The green science on one side, the red science on the other. Why don't you pick a research that uses green and red?
Sure. Okay, let's have a quick look. We could go for gun turret damage upgrade. Makes our bullets more deadly. So we need to use less of them and things get killed a little bit faster before they can have a chance to damage anything. So let's go for that, I think.
Okay. It says damage bonus plus 10%. That is not bad.
Now, the nice thing with the gun turret is the next thing it allows is gun turret damage upgrade 2, and so on. Some research is just incremental. It isn't that each new research unlocks a new effect. It's just it adds more of the current effect, and it'll go. Typically, I think they go up to level 5 of those researches. So there would be gun turret damage 5, but each new level of it has greatly increased research costs. So it does, and it isn't simply more red and more green. Eventually, it gets to it now needs blue. Eventually, it gets to needing purple, and that is the highest level science that you can make.
And the blue is like, if you think this is a little bit complicated, it is. The green science is a little bit complicated. This is probably the first complicated thing you're going to do in your factory is green science.
Yeah.
Blue science is ridiculously complicated compared to this. Blue science is rough. This is a joke compared to blue science. So prepare yourself. Steel your nerves. And blue science is coming.
Gird your loins.
Oh man. Well, I think that's a pretty good start here for green science. We're probably going to put down a second inserter factory just to make sure that we're getting it done as fast as possible. And it looks like the green beakers are being produced so slowly that we probably don't need to speed it up a little bit.
What I was going to suggest is maybe moving the coal line completely to make room to have an extra for green science pack.
That is one way to do it.
On the other side.
Another thing we could do, Aavak, is check out the difference in the speed between the blue factory and the gray factory. If you mouse over the gray factory, it has a crafting speed of 0.5, which means it's half as fast as you craft in your pocket. The blue factory has a crafting speed of 0.75. So it is 50% faster than the gray factory. And that's a huge difference when you're talking about, the efficiency of your entire facility. So if we put blue factories here like Aavak has just done, they're going to produce 50% more beakers than they were previously. That's a big deal.
Still a little bit slower than you, but it's getting closer to the sweet spot at that point. But the blue factory, and there's one thing that we haven't discussed, and this will be the last thing. I'm aware that the time is getting on a little bit now, but modules. Now, we haven't even looked at that yet because we're not close enough to being able to make them, but modules allow you to upgrade certain aspects of a facility. In this case, a factory, you could add speed, energy, production. I believe there's even one called pollution. And effectively, the modules, as you might imagine, speed makes it work faster. Energy reduces the energy consumption. Productivity makes it make more with the same resources. Now, the caveat is that it'll increase something a bit, but it will also have negatives. For example, it might just plucking numbers out of thin air, might increase the speed of the factory 2 times, but it'll increase the energy demand 3 times.
Hmm.
There's always more. You're paying a lot to have this. So it's really something you only want to look at when you're really trying to just get the most out of your factory that you can. And the cost isn't as important to you. If you're looking purely for cost efficiency, then generally modules are not something you want to go for.
Correct. But you'll probably find that we'll use modules in most of our automated
Oh, yeah,
facilities because
absolutely.
they make the style of the game more fun to play than without modules.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that's going to have to do it for now. So thanks you so much for joining us today. Hope you learned a little bit about green science with us. Obviously, these ratios are not the best thing ever, but this is an
Yeah.
easy way to get started. And if you're looking to get started with green science, this will definitely do the trick. So we'll see you guys next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.